Welcome. I'm Lehtiniemi. I'm one of a group of 4 multidisciplinary experts. I'm a sociologist on the team. The others are Brian Moore, who's in law, Ed Napke, who's in medicine, and Michael Chang, who's a clinical engineer. We have collaborated for the past few years to put our heads together to take a look at what the big challenges are in medical devices. Slide 1, please. I might point out as I'm speaking that the bottom left-hand screen identifies me as Michael Cheng. There's a reason for that. I'm using his computer. One of the things that's important in addressing the challenge of medical devices is the need for a comprehensive global policy template on medical device safety and optimal outcomes. The issue here is to ensure patient safety. Slide 2, please. Can I have the second there? I've worked in multidisciplinary work for over 50 years. My expertise was in taking a look at organizational, procedural effectiveness and structural effectiveness. It involved national programs and international programs. Early on in my career, I saw this slide and I thought it was funny, but so to the point. That slide on the right is 50 years old. Things have become much more complex in the last half century. What it speaks to is the fact that there are a lot of difficulties in communicating effectively to get done what is wanted. Next slide, please. The scope of medical devices is enormously complex. It's broad and diverse. It embraces devices as simple as needles for suturing, tongue depressors, and as complex as electronic machines used for magnetic imaging, etc. There's a wide gulf in terms of what expertise must be brought to bear to cover this whole broad range of medical devices. Next slide, please. We're looking at a longitudinal process that starts with imagining what is needed, designing it, manufacturing it, verifying that it's compliant with regulations, the marketing and advertising, the checking that it complies with national safety regulations, installation and maintenance, training for users, and performance monitoring. It's like a chain. At each link, there's expertise that is specific to what is being done at that stage. And it connects with the next link in the process. So there's communication between the designers and the manufacturers. And there's communication between the manufacturers and the regulatory people, and so on, link by link by link till it comes to the user. That process takes time in the first instance. It could take many years for a device to reach installation and use on a patient. And it goes through many different hands along the way. A full chain of events often spans many years. The people at the front end have very seldom communicated with the people at the back end, the patients on which they're actually used. The expertise at each stage is specialized. A designer has skills and knowledge that are quite different from those of a manufacturer, quite different from those of the materials procurement people, quite different from those of the regulators, and so on, right down to the operators who use the device and the patients who may in fact use devices that they purchase themselves. What's characteristic of these differences is the fact that each profession or area of expertise has its own specific technical terminology, a distinctive lexicon. I've worked in a multinational, multidisciplinary environment most of my career, and I found that people from a different profession might each use the same word to mean something quite differently, or they might use different words to mean the same thing. And bridging that communication gap was the main part of my work, was making sure that everybody understood what the other person not only said, but what they meant. Next slide, please. One of the ways of bridging this communications challenge is to have a common framework so everybody has the same big picture of what is involved and who is involved. It's a three-step framework that Brian will speak to for a moment. And Brian, perhaps you can highlight the main points of that three-step process.
Absolutely, I'd be happy to. Essentially, when you've got a variety of regulatory schemes with different requirements or commonalities, what you want to have is a universal holistic framework that will focus on product safety and patient safety. And very briefly, product safety is not the same thing as patient safety. Product safety entails regulatory clearance. In other words, is the product safe? Is the product in compliance with the local regulatory requirements? But that doesn't guarantee patient safety. For patient safety in the universal and holistic framework, we have two more steps. At step 2, we focus on the particular context in which the medical device will be used. And this will include such considerations as environmental considerations. Will the device function in humidity? Will the device function depending on user and training instructions? What are the requirements for the specific environmental and human factors that will impact the safety of the patient? And finally, at step 3, again, the focus is on the patient safety. This is the ultimate outcome. At step 3, the focus is on how is the device going to be engaged in safe use and management. What kind of training is required? What kind of quality preservation measures are necessary? What kind of adverse event reporting is in place? And what kind of disposal requirements are necessary once the device has reached the end of its life cycle?
Thank you. Next slide, please. I mentioned at the beginning that not only is there a medical device challenge, but there's also communication. Is that the 3-stage medical device framework provides a big picture, an overview of the field to foster a shared awareness and understanding of the whole process from start to finish. What it provides is a template for people to understand that what their immediate concern is part of the picture. For senior policymakers and financial decision makers, they need to understand the whole process of what it is that they're endorsing and buying into. Ryan, I've got an image on your screen here that I'm sorry, can we go back to the, oops, battery ran out. The policymakers and financial decision makers need a clear grasp of the overall medical devices life cycle so they understand a complete range of aspects that require attention. The 3-step framework provides an easy to grasp big picture of the key aspects that must be examined to ensure safe outcomes from the use of medical devices. That's it. Next. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
That was good. That was 8, except for that interruption. I don't know how you